The afternoon sun was sliding behind the heavy brick facade of Oak Ridge High, casting long, bruised shadows across the concrete courtyard. Inside, the hallways smelled of floor wax, old metal, and that distinctive, heavy tension that only exists in high school corridors right after the final bell rang. Most kids rushed for the yellow school buses or scattered toward the parking lot, laughing and shouting, eager to trade school walls for freedom. But Maya stood near her locker, standing perfectly still, her hands resting quietly over the straps of her oversized denim backpack. She looked smaller than she actually was, deliberate in the way she pulled her shoulders inward, wearing a faded gray hoodie that hid the frame of someone who spent 5 hours a day learning how to shift her body weight to control an opponent's momentum. That quiet invisibility ended the moment a heavy hand slammed into the metal locker right next to Maya's ear. The metal boomed like a muffled gunshot through the emptying hallway. Maya didn't flinch, though her pulse spiked with a practiced, steady rhythm. She slowly turned her head to see Chloe standing there. Chloe was a senior, tall and sharp-edged, wearing a pristine varsity jacket that seemed to give her permission to treat the school like her personal kingdom. Before Maya could even reach down to pick it up, Brenda grabbed her left wrist. Maya's instincts immediately screamed at her to react. 10 years of muscle memory tried to kick in, a simple wrist turn, a shift of her hips, and Brenda would have ended up flat on her back before she even realized she was falling. But Maya froze the impulse midway through her nerve endings. She remembered her grandfather's strict rule, spoken 1,000 times in his low, gravelly voice: the art is for protection, never for pride, and never to settle a score. So Maya let the door swung shut behind them with a heavy, echoey thud, cutting off the faint. What none of them realized was that Maya wasn't looking at Chloe's face or the marker in her hand. Maya's eyes were quietly scanning the entire room, taking in every detail with cold, trained precision. She calculated the distance between the slick floor tiles, the wet patches near the leaking pipe, the exact reach of Chloe's long arms, and the position of the heavy wooden broom resting against the far stall. 2 years ago, Maya had been a very different kid. Growing up in her grandfather's martial arts school, she had mastered the physical moves quickly, but her discipline hadn't caught up with her technical skill. She had been proud, quick to anger, and eager to prove herself to anyone who doubted her. One evening after class, a group of older boys from a rival neighborhood had pushed her younger brother, Julian, off his bicycle outside a local grocery store, taking his backpack and laughing as he scraped his knees on the pavement. Maya had witnessed it from across the street. Driven by a wave of hot, unthinking rage, she hadn't paused to think or to escalate. She had run across the road and used her advanced techniques, knocking 2 of the older boys down before anyone could intervene. But in the chaos, one of the boys had fallen back into a glass storefront, shattering the pane and sending heavy shards falling onto the sidewalk. Her brother had been cut by the falling glass, needing 20 stitches along his arm. The image of her little brother bleeding on the pavement, crying not because of the bullies, but because of the chaos Maya had unleashed, was forever burned into her memory. That night, her grandfather didn't yell at her. He didn't lock up the dojo or take away her belt. Instead, he sat her down on the quiet mat under the dim light of the overhead lamps, wrapped her hands in white cotton canvas, and looked into her eyes with a profound sadness. He told her that strength without emotional control was just violence, no matter how good the intention was. He made her swear an oath that she would never use her training out of anger, vanity, or pride again, and that true mastery meant absorbing an insult without letting it change who you were inside. Ever since that night, Maya had built an invisible wall around her tempers, promising herself that she would bear any humiliation before she ever let her hands unleash destruction again. Back in the dim, cold bathroom, Chloe raised the marker right up to Maya's forehead, pressing the black tip against her skin. Maya didn't move an inch. Brenda laughed loudly, pulling out her phone to record the moment, while Sam urged Chloe to hurry up before a teacher walked down the hallway. Chloe sneered, telling Maya that people like her were born to be walked on, that she was weak, useless, and had nothing inside her worth respecting. The ink felt cold as Chloe dragged a thick black line down Maya's cheek. The humiliation was heavy, burning like fire under Maya's skin, but as she listened to the harsh laughter of the three girls, she focused entirely on her grandfather's words, breathing slowly, letting the insult wash over her like water over a flat stone. She was preparing to just take it, to let them finish their cruel game and walk away, when suddenly the heavy wooden door of the end stall clicked open with a long, rusty creak. Everyone in the room froze. Brenda stopped recording, lowering her phone, while Chloe turned around slowly, her brow furrowing in irritation. Out of the dark, unused stall stepped a small, fragile-looking freshman named Lily. She was shaking so hard her knees were knocking together, her arms pulled tight against her chest, holding a canvas binder covered in colorful sketches. Lily had been hiding in the stall since the end of the day, waiting for the hallways to clear so she wouldn't run into Chloe's crew, only to end up trapped inside when they locked the door. Tears were already streaming down Lily's cheeks as she looked from Chloe to Maya, her voice cracking as she begged them to just let her leave, promising she wouldn't tell anyone what she had seen. Chloe's expression shifted from amusement to mean annoyance. She let go of Maya's hoodie, walking slowly toward Lily like a predator eyeing a smaller target. Chloe mocked the younger girl, asking her why she was hiding in the dark like a rat, and demanded to see what was inside the binder she was clinging to so desperately. When Lily pulled the binder closer to her chest, refusing to hand it over, Brenda stepped in, grabbing Lily by her shoulders and yanking her back against the tiled wall. The canvas binder slipped out of Lily's fingers, hitting the wet floor with a heavy slap, and pages of detailed, hand-drawn colored pencil portraits scattered across the floor, getting soaked in the dirty water near the broken drain. Lily dropped to her knees, crying softly as she tried to gather the ruined papers, but Chloe stepped right onto one of the main drawings, grinding the rubber sole of her sneaker into the paper until it tore in half. Chloe told her that nobody cared about her stupid pictures, just like nobody cared about Maya's contest entry. Maya stood near the sink, watching the scene unfold. The cool, controlled calm that had guided her for the last 2 years began to shift. The line between protecting her own pride and standing by while someone innocent was hurt had just been crossed. She looked at Lily's tear-streaked face, seeing the exact same terror her little brother had felt 2 years ago, and she realized that true restraint wasn't about hiding, it was about knowing exactly when to step up. Chloe reached down, grabbing Lily by the hood of her jacket and hoisting her up off the ground, raising her hand as if she was going to push her into the empty sink basin. The air in the bathroom instantly grew dead silent, save for the dripping tap in the corner. Maya took one step forward. Her posture changed completely in an instant. The slouched shoulders vanished, her back straightened, and her eyes, which had been cast down at the floor, locked onto Chloe with a quiet, lethal intensity that stopped Chloe in her tracks. Maya's voice didn't sound like the quiet, hesitant whisper she used in class, it was calm, deep, and carried a weight that vibrated off the damp walls. She told Chloe to let the girl go. Brenda laughed nervously, telling Maya to shut up and stay out of it, while Sam took a step back from the door, feeling an unexpected shift in the energy of the room. Chloe turned back toward Maya, dropping Lily onto the floor with a thump, her face twisted in disbelief. She asked Maya who she thought she was talking to, taking an aggressive step toward her with her hands raised. But before Chloe's foot even finished hit the ground, Maya moved. It wasn't a wild, angry swing. It was a fluid, lightning-fast display of pure, disciplined technique developed over 10 long years. Maya stepped inside Chloe's reach, her hand catching Chloe's wrist with absolute precision. With a smooth turn of her hips, she used Chloe's own momentum against her, redirecting her forward motion so seamlessly that Chloe didn't even understand why her feet were no longer on the floor. In a fraction of a second, Chloe was guided gently but firmly to the floor, landing flat on her back with a heavy thud that knocked the breath out of her chest. Maya didn't strike her, she simply held her down with a single hand pressed against her shoulder joint, locking her movement entirely using leverage alone. Brenda screamed in shock and rushed forward to hit Maya from behind. Without even looking back, Maya sensed the incoming air movement. She executed a sharp, controlled side step, catching Brenda's outstretched arm, twisting it up gently until Brenda's shoulder locked, forcing her to fall onto her knees beside Chloe. Sam, terrified by the effortless efficiency of what she had just witnessed, backed up against the locked bathroom door, her hands shaking as she struggled to unlock it, completely unable to comprehend how the quietest girl in school had taken down 2 seniors in less than 3 seconds without even breaking a sweat. The bathroom fell completely silent, save for the sound of Chloe gasping for air on the damp floor and Brenda trembling on her knees, completely immobilized by a hold that barely looked like it required any effort. Maya didn't raise her voice. She looked down at Chloe, her eyes steady and clear, completely devoid of hatred or victory. She asked Chloe if she was hurt, her tone surprisingly gentle, making the moment feel even more surreal. Chloe could only stare up at her in absolute shock, her arrogance completely stripped away, replaced by a deep, confusing fear. She tried to pull her arm free, but Maya's grip was like a steel vice, completely immovable yet carefully controlled so as not to cause real harm. Maya turned her head slightly to check on Lily, who was still sitting on the floor, her eyes wide with amazement, holding the torn drawings against her chest. Maya told Lily gently to gather her things and stand up. As Lily scrambled to her feet, Maya slowly released her hold on Brenda and Chloe, stepping back into a classic neutral stance, her hands open at her sides. She showed no signs of excitement, no anger, and no boasting. She wasn't fighting for her own ego, she had simply drawn a boundary that no one was allowed to cross. Brenda quickly backed away, scrambling over to the sinks, while Chloe slowly sat up, rubbing her shoulder and staring at the floor, unable to meet Maya's gaze. Just then, the heavy metal lock on the bathroom door rattled, and the door burst open. Mr. Vance, the vice principal, stepped into the room, followed by 2 security guards. He took one look at the scene, the torn papers on the floor, Chloe on the ground, Brenda cowering by the sink, and Maya standing calmly in the center of it all with black marker ink still smeared across her cheek, and his face darkened with confusion and anger. He looked around the room, demanding to know what was going on. Brenda immediately pointed a trembling finger at Maya, stammering that Maya had suddenly snapped and attacked them out of nowhere. Mr. Vance looked at Maya, his expression filled with disappointment and suspicion. He told all 4 of them to walk straight to his office down the hallway. Maya didn't try to defend herself, nor did she argue. She simply nodded, stooping down to help Lily pick up the remaining pieces of her torn artwork, carefully smoothing out the creased paper before placing it back inside the binder. As they walked down the long, quiet hallway toward the administrative wing, the news had already begun to spread among the few students remaining for after-school activities. Whispers followed them, with kids staring through classroom doors, trying to understand how the quiet girl from the back row was now at the center of a major incident. Inside the vice principal's office, the air was suffocatingly formal. Mr. Vance sat behind his large oak desk, looking across at the 4 students seated in a row. Chloe sat with her arms crossed, playing the victim masterfully, her voice trembling as she lied, claiming that she and Brenda had only gone into the bathroom to fix their hair when Maya had ambushed them, using some kind of violent moves to throw them to the ground. Brenda nodded eagerly, adding that Maya was dangerous and had threatened them. Mr. Vance turned his gaze to Maya, asking her if she had any explanation for why 2 seniors were thrown to the floor, reminding her that the school had a strict zero-tolerance policy for physical violence, which meant immediate suspension or even expulsion. Maya sat quietly, her hands folded neatly in her lap. She looked Mr. Vance straight in the eye and said quietly that she used physical force to stop a situation from escalating, but she didn't hit anyone or try to cause harm. Chloe interrupted, raising her voice, calling Maya a liar and demanding that her parents be called so they could file charges. But just as Mr. Vance reached for his desk phone to make the call, Lily stood up from her chair. Her hands were shaking so hard the papers in her lap rustled, but her voice, though quiet, was steady. She told Mr. Vance that Chloe was lying, explaining everything that had happened from the beginning, how Chloe had torn Maya's entry off the locker, how they had dragged Maya into the bathroom, how they had threatened to draw on her face, and how Chloe had stepped on her art binder. Mr. Vance paused, his hand hovering over the receiver. He looked at Lily's tear-stained face and then at the ruined drawings resting on her lap. But Chloe scoffed, claiming there was no proof of any of it and that it was just two freshmen taking sides against her. For a long moment, it seemed like Mr. Vance was leaning toward suspending everyone involved just to clear the case. But then, Maya reached down into the pocket of her faded gray hoodie and pulled out a small, old USB flash drive, placing it gently on the wooden desk in front of the vice principal. Mr. Vance picked up the drive, looking at it with confusion. Maya explained that the old East Wing bathroom had indeed been closed for renovations, but what the students didn't know was that the school had installed a temporary security camera right outside the main door last week to monitor contractors moving equipment in and out. Furthermore, Maya reached into her pocket and pulled out Brenda's phone, which Brenda had dropped on the floor in terror when Maya took down Chloe, and pressed play on the video recording Brenda herself had started when they first dragged Maya into the room. The screen clearly played the entire incident, Chloe dragging Maya by the hoodie, unsnapping the marker, mocking her, and then turning on Lily to destroy her artwork. It showed Maya standing completely passive, taking the insults without moving a muscle, until the exact moment Chloe raised her hand to hit Lily. It showed Maya's movement, not violent punches or wild swings, but a clean, defensive redirection that brought Chloe to the floor with zero unnecessary harm. The proof was absolute, undeniable, and laid out in clear high definition. Chloe's face turned completely pale as the audio of her own cruel words filled the quiet office. Brenda looked down at her lap, unable to say a single word. Mr. Vance closed his eyes for a long moment, letting out a heavy breath. The thick silence in the office was deafening. He turned off the phone, slid it across the desk, and looked at Chloe and Brenda with an expression of profound disappointment. He told them that their behavior was unacceptable, cruel, and completely violated every code of conduct the school stood for. He immediately revoked their privileges, assigned them 2 weeks of internal suspension, and ordered them to complete 50 hours of community service, including helping clean the art department every afternoon. Then, Mr. Vance turned to Maya. His face softened, his tone changing completely. He acknowledged that while the school didn't encourage students to take matters into their own hands, Maya's actions had shown an extraordinary level of control, patience, and courage in defending a younger student. He apologized for doubting her initial account and told her she was cleared of any wrongdoing. He also mentioned that the school art contest entries were being reviewed that very evening, and he would personally ensure that Maya's entry was restored and submitted to the judges. As they stepped out of the office into the quiet afternoon sun, Lily stopped Maya near the main doors. She looked up at her, eyes shining with gratitude, and asked Maya how she was able to stay so calm, how she had learned to move like that, and why she hadn't fought back right away when Chloe was picking on her. Maya looked out at the golden sunlight streaming across the schoolyard, taking a deep, clean breath of fresh air. She smiled warmly, her voice gentle and soft as she told Lily that real strength isn't about proving you can hurt someone else, it's about having the power to cause harm, but choosing every single day to use that power only to protect those who cannot protect themselves. A few weeks later, the school auditorium was packed for the annual art showcase. Students and parents lined the aisles, admiring the paintings and drawings on display. Near the center of the exhibit hung Maya's restored artwork, a striking black and white ink drawing of an old wooden martial arts mat, bathed in light, with two hands reaching out not to fight, but to lift someone up off the floor. Beside it hung a smaller, brightly colored sketch by Lily, depicting a small bird flying free above high concrete walls. Maya stood in a quiet corner of the room, watching the crowd, wearing her simple denim jacket, completely at peace with who she was. She had learned that quiet courage doesn't need a loud voice or a grand showcase to make a difference. The real victory was never about winning a fight in a dark hallway, it was about keeping your heart gentle in a world that so often tries to make it cold. True strength isn't measured by the battles you win, but by the peace you preserve and the defenseless you choose to protect.